$50, cash up front.
I'm locking them now. Repeat, initiating full lockdown protocol. We need assistance at the main gate immediately.
Settle in, because what I've got for you tonight is the kind of thing that crawls under your skin and stays there. Before we dive in, if you like horror that feels disturbingly real, like something that could be happening in the next town over, Sinister Tales is a channel I honestly recommend. His stories feel lived in and plausible, and the visuals hit with that movie-level punch while still feeling uncomfortably close to real life. I've linked him in the pinned comment. He's absolutely worth a look and a subscription. But for now, let's step into the nightmare. I've been a 911 dispatcher for about 6 years. I work nights in a rural county in Minnesota, and when I say rural, I mean it. We've got 3 patrol cars covering a huge area. Half the time, the deputies are 40 minutes out, tied up with a deer strike or a drunk arguing with his neighbor about noise. Our dispatch center isn't some gleaming high-tech bunker. It's a squat brick addition tacked onto the back of the old town hall. The main room has no windows, too much glare on the monitors. So at night, I sit alone in this fluorescent-lit box, watching screens and listening to the heater hum. This happened in mid-February, during one of those brutal cold snaps. It had been dumping snow since noon. By 2 o'clock a.m. the roads were a mess, and I hadn't had a call in over 3 hours. Just the low drone of the heater and the occasional crackle from the radio tower. At 2:14 a.m., one of the lines flashed red. I slid my headset on and hit answer. 911. What is your emergency? Silence. Usually that means a pocket dial, or someone who's there but too scared to speak. But this wasn't empty silence. I heard the wind, roaring and distorted, like it was blasting straight across a phone microphone. Under that was breathing. Heavy, ragged breathing, like someone who'd just run in sub-zero air. 911, I repeated, keeping my voice calm. Can you hear me? Do you need police, fire, or medical? The wind hissed through the line. The breathing scraped in and out. No words. I started a trace. Out here, cell pings are usually useless. Tower miles away, 5-mile radius best case. But this time the system snapped to a location immediately. Phase II data came up and a blue dot appeared on my map. I frowned. The dot wasn't on a road. It wasn't at a farmhouse. It was right on top of the dispatch center icon. I refreshed the map, thinking the software glitched. The dot didn't budge. According to the GPS, whoever was calling was standing in the staff parking lot directly behind my building. A cold, hollow feeling went through me. We don't have windows in the room, so the only way to see outside is the cameras. I pulled up the rear lot feed. The image was grainy black and white, snow streaking across it like static. And there he was. A lone figure stood in the middle of the small, snow-covered lot. Heavy parka, hood up. He wasn't pacing or moving around to keep warm. He just stood there, perfectly still, facing the camera mounted over the back door. One hand was shoved into his pocket. The other held a phone to his ear. My heart slammed against my ribs. I stared at the monitor and spoke into the headset. Sir, I can see you on the camera. You're in a restricted area. Put the phone down and tell me your emergency. On the monitor, he tilted his head back and looked straight up at the camera lens, as if he knew exactly where I was on the other side of the wire. In my ears, the breathing stopped. A voice came through, calm, far too calm. The back door isn't latching right in this cold, the man said. You should check it. I froze. He was right. The back door had been a problem for months. When it dropped below zero, the weather stripping froze and the magnetic lock sometimes didn't catch all the way. Who is this? I demanded, my hand hovering over the radio button. Every nerve in me was screaming to call for backup. You really need to pay more attention, he said. Not just to the door, to where you leave your things. I keyed the radio instantly. Dispatch to all units. I have a 10 to 33 at the station, suspicious subject in the rear lot, possible attempted entry. I am alone in the building. Copy that, dispatch. Deputy Miller's voice cut through, thin under the static. I'm way out on County Road 9. With these roads, I'm at least 20 minutes out. 20 minutes. I was alone for 20 minutes. I snapped my gaze back to the monitor. The lot was empty. Sir, I said into the still open call, my voice tighter now, I can't see you on the camera anymore. Don't worry about me, he said. I'm not coming in yet. I just wanted to make sure you were awake. He paused. I need you to listen very carefully. Help is already on the way, I lied. They're 2 minutes out. He laughed, a dry, rasping sound. No, they're not. I listened to the scanner. Miller's near the county line. You're alone in that little box. Another pause. But you know who isn't alone? I stopped breathing. What are you talking about? Your house, he said. Elm Street, blue siding. Nice porch. My blood turned to ice. That was my address. My wife and our 6-year-old daughter were there. You leave them out of this, I snapped, my professional tone cracking apart. My friend is parked 2 houses down, the man went on, unbothered. He's watching the house right now. He says the living room light just went off. Your wife must have fallen asleep on the couch. I clutched the edge of the desk so hard my knuckles ached. Does she know you forget to lock the side door from the garage sometimes? He asked softly. My stomach rolled. I grabbed my personal phone with a shaking hand and texted my wife as fast as I could. Lock all doors now. Why are you doing this? I forced out, trying to keep him talking. Because you people think you can just destroy families, then go home to your warm beds and forget, he hissed. The sudden rage in his voice was explosive. Then, from the hallway behind me, I heard a sound that made me jolt out of my chair. The back door handle being pushed down and let go. Once, twice. He wasn't in the lot anymore. He was in the building, right on the other side of the interior corridor. If the magnetic lock had failed, there was only one door between us. I ran to the heavy steel door that separated dispatch from the rest of the hall and threw the deadbolt. Then I backed into the corner of the room and pulled up the internal camera feed. The rear exterior door opened. A blast of snow spiraled into the hallway. Then the man in the parka stepped inside, shutting the door behind him. He shook the snow off his shoulders like he was coming home from work. He looked up at the hallway camera and gave it a little wave. I told you the latch was broken, he said into the phone. I could hear his voice both in my headset and faintly through the wall. He walked toward the dispatch room door, the only barrier left. He didn't kick or pound on it. He just rested his forehead against the steel and spoke, his voice muffled and close. You sent the police to my house, he whispered. Last year, you took the call. I ransacked my memory. I processed thousands of calls, domestics, thefts, crashes. Nothing clicked. I don't know who you are, I shouted through the door. My friend at your house is getting impatient, he said. He just texted. He says he sees movement in the upstairs window, your daughter's room. Don't you touch them, I screamed. My eyes scanned the room for anything I could use as a weapon. Stapler, fire extinguisher, coffee mug. None of it felt like enough. Open the door, he said. Open it and I'll call him off. You wait for the cops, he goes inside. It was a perfect nightmare dilemma. Open the door and likely die. Keep it locked and risk my family. My training cut through the panic. Never open the door. If I died in that room, I couldn't help anyone. I already sent officers to my house, I bluffed. They're there now. Liar, he spat. Then he started throwing his weight against the door, over and over. The steel vibrated in its frame, but the deadbolt held. Dispatch! Miller's voice suddenly blasted over the radio, louder than anything else in the room. We're pulling into the lot. Where is he? Hallway, I yelled into the mic. He's in the hallway inside. On the external monitor, blue and red strobes washed over the snow. I watched 2 deputies sprint toward the back door, guns drawn. On the other side of my door, the man went still. He must have heard the sirens cut off. Game over, he whispered into the phone. From the hall, I heard shouting. Sheriff's office. Get on the ground, show me your hands. There was a heavy thud, a scuffle, then the metallic snap of handcuffs. Subject in custody, Miller panted over the radio. We got him. My legs gave out. I slid down the wall and sat there shaking. Then I grabbed my cell and called my wife. She answered on the first ring, hysterical. She'd seen my text and locked herself and our daughter in the bathroom. "Is anyone there?" I asked. "Did you see anyone outside?" "I don't know," she sobbed. "Right after you texted me, I heard a car take off fast. A patrol unit went straight to my house. They never did find the second vehicle, but in the snow by our garage, they found footprints. Someone had been standing there, watching." We got the rest of the story later that morning at the station. The man who'd broken in was named David K. The name meant nothing to me until the sergeant pulled up an old report. 8 months earlier, I'd taken a 911 call from a woman whispering that her adult son was in a violent rage, smashing things and threatening her with a knife. I dispatched deputies. When they arrived, he attacked them. He'd been sentenced to 10 years for aggravated assault and attempted murder. David K. was his older brother. He decided I was the reason his brother went to prison. In his mind, if I'd delayed sending officers or coded the call differently, things would have gone another way. He'd spent months tracking my schedule, figuring out where I lived, waiting for a night when the weather would keep the cops far from town. The worst part wasn't the man at the door. It was the message logs on his phone. The officers found texts between him and the accomplice at my house. One, sent 2 minutes before Miller pulled into the lot, read, "He's not coming out. Go ahead and break the window." If Miller had been 60 seconds slower, I have no idea what I'd be living with now, or if I'd still have a family at all. I still work dispatch, but when it snows, I check that back door myself twice. And there's a loaded handgun in my desk drawer now. You know those cheap motels that cling to interstate exits? Flickering neon signs, parking lot lights buzzing, carpets that probably haven't been replaced since the early 90s. That's where I work. It's not a career. It's just a night job while I finish my degree online. Most nights on Graveyard are dull. I sit behind the glass at the front desk, watch Netflix on my phone, and buzz in the occasional trucker looking for a few hours of sleep. Last Tuesday wasn't like most nights. We were in the middle of a brutal blizzard. Highway Patrol had shut down I-95 in both directions for black ice. By midnight, the motel was practically abandoned. 3 rooms occupied, that's it. The wind hammered the automatic glass doors, and the snow was coming in sideways under the overhang. I was braced for 8 straight hours of boredom. At exactly 2:00 a.m., the front door sensor chimed. I looked up, startled. I hadn't seen headlights pull into the drop-off lane. A man walked in. He was huge, bundled in heavy winter gear, parka, snow pants, scarf wrapped so tight around his face that only his eyes were visible. He wasn't dusted with snow. He was caked in it, like he'd been crawling through drifts. He came up to the night window. I slid the glass panel open. "Can I help you?" I asked. "Room," he grunted, the word muffled by the scarf. "Okay," I said. "It's 65 for the night. I'll need an ID and a credit card." He stood perfectly still for a second. Then he reached into a pocket with a gloved hand and slapped a wad of cash down on the counter. The bills were damp and cold. "Wallet's in the car," he said. "Doors are frozen shut. I just need to warm up before I deal with it. Policy is crystal clear. No ID, no room, ever." But it was 20 below zero, and this guy was visibly shivering. Turning him away felt like signing a death sentence. "Fine," I sighed, already knowing I'd catch hell if my manager found out. I encoded a card. "Room 104 down the hall, first floor. Checkout's at 11. He took the key without a word of thanks and trudged off, leaving a dirty, melting trail of snow and mud across the linoleum. I went back to my phone. For about 40 minutes, nothing happened. Then something started to nag at me. He'd said his car doors were frozen shut, so how had he gotten to his wallet? And in all that wind, I usually heard engines when cars pulled up under the awning. I hadn't. We have a small security monitor behind the desk. I pulled up the front entrance camera and rewound the footage to 2:00 a.m. The driveway on the screen was empty. No vehicles pulling in, no headlights, nothing. I scrubbed back further. 1:50 a.m. still empty. At 1:45 a.m., I finally saw movement. He didn't walk in from the road. He emerged from the dense tree line behind the motel, a dark shape peeling itself free of the woods. On camera, he trudged slowly across the lot, straight to the glass doors, and stopped. He just stood there, not coming in, not knocking, standing inches from the glass, staring in. From that angle, he would have had a clear view of me at the desk, flipping between YouTube and my homework. He watched me for 15 minutes in a blizzard before he decided to come inside. Cold sweat prickled under my shirt. I reached for the desk phone to call my manager. Before my hand found the keypad, the phone rang. Room 106, the room right next to 104. Front desk, I said, picking up. Hey, a woman's voice, barely more than a whisper. She sounded terrified. This is the lady in 106. Someone's trying to open the connecting door between my room and the next one. My heart jumped. 104, I asked. Yes, she hissed. He's jiggling the handle really slowly. He keeps scratching at the door. Please send someone. I'm calling the police right now, I said. Lock yourself in the bathroom and don't open the door for anyone but law enforcement, okay? Okay, she said. I could hear the tremor in her voice. I hung up and dialed 911. Because of the highway closure, state troopers were already patrolling nearby. Dispatch said they could be there in 5 minutes. Those 5 minutes were the longest of my life. I grabbed a can of pepper spray from the drawer and pressed my back to the wall, watching the hallway, expecting any second to see that big guy stomping back toward the front desk. Finally, blue lights strobed across the front windows. 2 troopers came in, tracked snow onto the mat, and I practically shoved the master key into their hands. Room 104, I said. Be careful. They drew their weapons and headed down the corridor. I tracked them on the internal camera as they stacked up on the door, counted down, and kicked it in. They disappeared inside. A few seconds passed. One trooper reappeared and motioned for me. My legs felt like rubber as I walked down the hallway. Room 104 was empty. The bed was untouched. The bathroom door hung open. The heater hummed. The only thing out of place was the window. It stood wide open, curtains flapping, snow blowing in. The screen had been popped out and leaned against the wall. He must have taken off as soon as he heard the sirens, one trooper said, holstering his gun. We'll sweep the woods, but with this snow, tracks won't last. Then he pointed to the little table by the TV. He left you something, though. A piece of motel stationery lay there. On it, in jagged, uneven handwriting, were 3 words, "You seem nice. Check your car before you drive home." My throat went dry. My car, I managed. Is your vehicle here? The trooper asked. Yeah, around the side, red Honda. We'll take a look. We went back out into the storm and around the building. My car was a lumpy white shape under a blanket of snow, just like everything else. Nothing looked disturbed. Check inside, the trooper said, sweeping his flashlight over the windows. I hit the remote. The lights blinked. I opened the driver's door. Front seat was normal. Gym bag, trash, the usual, nothing obviously missing. Looks okay, I said, exhaling shakily. Maybe he was just trying to mess with me. Check the back, the trooper said. I opened the rear door. The smell hit me first, wet earth and cold air. The seat fabric was soaked, darkened in 2 large, distinct patches. Muddy footprints, side by side, right where someone's boots would have been if they were sitting there. The mud had started to freeze around the edges. The trooper's light swept the floorboard. Candy wrappers lay in a little pile of half-melted snow. He wasn't just watching from outside, the trooper said grimly. He angled the beam at the prints again. They pointed forward toward the driver's seat. He was in your car, sitting behind you, waiting for you to get off. He must have gotten too cold, I realized. Too cold to keep hiding, too impatient to wait another 5 hours until my shift ended. So he came inside, got a room, tried the connecting door. If that woman hadn't called, if the troopers had taken longer, if he hadn't decided to warm up first, I would have locked up at 7 o'clock a.m., trudged out to my car and started the engine. and I wouldn't have been driving alone. I've had my share of dead-end jobs, but the security gig at Northridge Mall was supposed to be easy money. A couple extra paychecks before Christmas, that's all I wanted. The mall used to be huge in the 90s. Now it was half dead. Empty storefronts covered in blank drywall. A food court with more closed vendors than open ones. Skylights so filthy they turned midday sun into a permanent overcast. My shift was 10 o'clock p.m. to 6 o'clock a.m. on my first night. The hiring manager, Dave, a guy with permanent dark circles under his eyes, walked me through the place. Fire exits, breaker rooms, service corridors, and finally the security office with its wall of monitors and ancient coffee pot. "It gets cold in here at night," Dave said, zipping his jacket higher. "Management turns the heat way down to save money. Bring a thermos." "Got it," I said. "Anything I should watch out for?" "Break-ins." Dave gave a dry, humorless laugh. "Nobody wants to steal from this dump. Just walk the perimeter once an hour. The rest of the time, sit in the office and don't fall asleep." He handed me a set of keys and a heavy maglite, then left. He didn't mention the one thing that would nearly stop my heart at 1 o'clock a.m. The first couple of hours were fine. Outside, a winter storm was hammering the town. I could hear the wind moaning against the glass entrances. Snow piled up against the automatic doors. Inside, the place had that suffocating silence only big, empty buildings get. My footsteps echoed far louder than they should have. Around 1 o'clock a.m., I was on my second ground floor patrol. I'd just come around the corner by the kids' zone. A little cluster of coin-op rides in front of the food court. There was a tiny carousel, a rocket ship, and this cartoon train with a painted face and big, stupid eyes. Out of nowhere, the darkness exploded with sound. "Ha ha, all aboard for fun." I jumped a foot, whipping the flashlight up like a club. The voice boomed through the empty mall, echoed off the shuttered gate of the shoe store, off the blank drywall of a dead boutique. My beam hit the train. It rocked back and forth for a few seconds, the painted eyes gleaming in the light. Then it went still. Silence crashed back down. I slowly exhaled. Just a ride on a timer. Demo mode, something like that. 5 minutes later, I was near the old cinema entrance when I heard it again, fainter this time, drifting from behind me. "Ha ha, all aboard for fun." I checked my watch. 1:05 a.m. That's when it hit me what Dave hadn't told me. Nobody ever cut power to the kids' rides. Either they were hardwired in, or whoever was supposed to shut them down just didn't bother. Every 5 minutes, like clockwork, that train would launch into its pitch to attract customers who weren't there. By 3 o'clock a.m., the fear had worn off. It was just grating. Wherever I went in the mall, the distorted little laugh would find me, bouncing off tiles and empty storefronts. I tried barricading myself in the security office, but I could still hear it, muffled through the thin walls. By 3:45 a.m., I decided to do a long sweep of the second floor just to get as far from that stupid train as possible. Upstairs, it was even colder. My breath puffed out in white clouds in the beam of the flashlight. Mannequins in darkened clothing stores looked like people frozen mid-scream. I walked the length of the upper balcony, looking down into the black pit of the atrium. Outside, the storm had gone from bad to worse. The skylights were buried in white. The only light inside was the dull red glow of exit signs. At 3:55 a.m., I leaned on the railing, staring down at the food court. My watch ticked louder than it should have. Right on schedule at 4 o'clock a.m., the machine chirped up from below. "Ha ha, all aboard for fun." I rolled my eyes. "Shut up," I muttered. Silence settled again. I pushed off the railing and turned toward the escalators. That's when I heard it. Laughter, but not the ride. The train's laugh was tinny and robotic, the same few notes every time. This was wrong. Closer. Flesh and breath instead of circuits and speakers. It sounded like an adult man trying to imitate a kid's giggle, but he couldn't quite hit it. High and sharp at first, then trailing off into a wheeze. The sound drifted up from the ground floor, near the entrance to one of the old department stores. maybe 50 feet from the kids' rides. I froze. My boots squeaked on the tile, loud in the stillness. "Hello," I called, my voice cracking. "Mall security, the mall is closed." Nothing answered. I told myself it was the wind getting into the ducts, or the ride's audio warping, or echoes from somewhere I couldn't place. Anything but what it sounded like. But that little voice in the back of my head, the one that makes people in horror movies go check basements, kicked in. It was my job. If someone was in here, I had to know. I went down the dead escalator, the rubber steps hard under my boots. I tried killing the flashlight for my eyes to adjust, but it was too dark. I clicked it back on. The cone of light swept across empty food court tables, over the kids' zone. The train sat motionless now, its painted grin looking less cute and more predatory in the shadows. I checked my watch. 4:04 a.m., 1 minute until the train's next cycle. I moved toward the department store entrance where I thought I'd heard the other laugh. In the middle of the aisle stood a circular rack overloaded with winter coats. "Is anyone there?" I asked. My hand tightened on the flashlight. It was a solid chunk of metal. If I had to swing it, it would do damage. Behind me at 4:05 sharp, the machine went off again. Ha ha, all aboard for fun. And layered over it from right in front of me came that other sound again. The wet, strained giggle. It was coming from inside the coat display. My entire body went cold. This wasn't the wind. It wasn't the train. Someone was hiding in the clothes, sandwiched between heavy parkas. I should have turned and run. I should have sprinted for the office, locked the door, and called 911 from behind glass. Instead, my legs felt like they were moving through syrup. "Come out," I said, trying to sound firm, failing. "I see you." I didn't see anything. I was bluffing and hoping whoever was there would scare easy. The coats rustled. A hand slid between two thick wool sleeves and pushed them aside. It wasn't a ghost. It wasn't some movie monster. It was a man, 40s maybe, face smeared with dirt or grease. He wore layers of mismatched clothes that reeked of old sweat, damp fabric, and cheap alcohol. His eyes were huge in the beam of the flashlight, reflecting it back in animal glints. His smile was too wide, full of yellow teeth. "The train is funny," he hissed. His voice was rough, like he hadn't spoken much in days. "It tells jokes." I took a slow step backward. "Sir, you can't be here. The mall is closed. You have to leave." He didn't move, just tilted his head sideways like a dog hearing a strange sound. That's when I saw what was in his hand. Partially hidden by a coat sleeve, something metallic flashed. A pair of big fabric shears. The kind used to cut through heavy cloth. "It's cold outside," he said. "I know," I stammered, "but you can't stay in here. I have to call the police." His smile vanished. His face went blank like someone flicked a switch. "No police," he said. He stepped out of the rack. He was taller than I'd thought, towering over me. Behind me on cue, the machine blared again. "Ha ha, all aboard for fun." For 10 a.m. the sound seemed to flip something in him. He lunged. He didn't run. He hurled himself at me with sudden, shocking speed. I swung the maglite as hard as I could. It slammed into his shoulder with a solid thunk. He barely reacted. He brought the shears up and slashed. I felt my jacket jerk as the blades tore through the fabric, scraping my arm but missing skin. I ran. I didn't care how I looked or if I lost the job. I turned and sprinted full tilt toward the main corridor, boots hammering the floor. Behind me, I could hear him, his harsh, wet breathing and the slap of his shoes as he chased me through the echoing dark. The security office door loomed ahead like salvation. I burst inside, slammed it, and fumbled the deadbolt closed with shaking hands. Then I backed away from the door and grabbed the landline. Through the reinforced window, I saw him come into view at the end of the hall. He stopped about 10 feet from the office, staring in at me. He raised the shears and clicked them together, metal on metal, like a pair of jaws. Then he laughed that awful, broken laugh again. I dialed 911 without taking my eyes off him. "There's a man in Northridge Mall," I told the operator, voice shaking. "He has a weapon." As soon as he saw the phone at my ear, he turned and walked away. No rush, no panic, just a casual stroll back into the shadows of the department store. The police got there 10 minutes later with K-9 units. They swept the whole mall. They never found him. What they did find was a nest. Behind glass cases in the jewelry department, tucked out of easy sight, was a sleeping bag, empty wrappers from food court garbage cans, and a sad little hoard of items that had disappeared from the security lost and found before my first shift. Hats, gloves, random trinkets. He'd been living in there, maybe for days, definitely the entire time I'd been on duty. The back delivery door by the old cinema had been pried open from the outside, probably days ago. The cops said he was likely just a drifter who'd broken in to escape the blizzard. That didn't explain the scissors, or the way he smiled, or how he laughed along with that damn train. I quit the next morning, didn't even bother picking up my check. Now I work at a toll booth. It's boring, the pay is worse, and sometimes the wind finds its way in under the glass. But out there, I can see every single thing coming at me from a mile away.